Yo, 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 it's your boy Colin, aka Colin Trades CSP, back with you with another weekly video. So last week we had a pretty basically full stalemate between the Bears and the Bulls. Going into the end of the week, everybody was keeping their eyes on basically GDP report, the PCE report, and then the Supreme Court decision on tariffs. So all eyes were on the market, and looked like really nothing happened. We got bearish news with the GDP, we got bearish news with the PCE, and the Supreme Court ruling was that tariffs are considered illegal. So all around bearish news, but then the market pumped almost 1% overall on the market. So the Bulls took control and the Bears couldn't bring this lower. So basically, looking at the overall market, we're just still sticking in the range that we're currently trading in, and no actual decider if we're going to be rather taking a leg lower or going higher. So overall, the market is just basically stuck in the range at the moment. We have a brand new week coming up, so basically we want to make sure that we're taking a look to see if we're going to be sticking within this range or if we're going to be making new legs up or new legs down. With the key basically market mover that's going to be happening will be Wednesday after hours with Nvidia reporting earnings. That is going to be the big market watch to happen to see if that will be the decider if the market wants to move. We do have other reports going on throughout this week, so we'll keep an eye on that. But let's get into the news. This is a brand new week, so brand new charts to look at, brand new ideas to basically decide what we want to do so that we can make money in this market. All right, so I just want to say thank you guys for watching this video. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have any suggestions of new video ideas, please leave a comment down below. So I'm more than welcome to assist with that. But let's get into the news. Then we're going to get into the earnings on what's going to be happening this week. And then we'll go into the charts to see exactly how we can game plan for the rest of this week. All right, let's get it. So first, looking at basically the economic calendar for this week, there's really nothing going on. We do have a Fed speaker happening on Tuesday. Fed Christopher Waller, he's a pretty big Fed speaker. Also will be speaking on Monday. So Monday, Tuesday, we got the Fed speaking. Also Wednesday, we'll have Thursday initial jobless claims. So really nothing serious going on, or serious deciders when it comes to the economic data that's going on. But we do have core and regular PPI happening on Friday after hours, with PCE coming in negative and or coming in hotter than normal, leaving the Fed to decide for a potential rate hike or rate cut. I'm not really getting any type of serious decisions on if we're going to be bullish when it comes to interest rates. Just the fact because of these inflation gauge coming in higher than normal. And then also with Trump increasing tariffs globally by 10% and then I think 15% over the weekend, that does cause a big decision for the Fed to possibly not lower rates. So I feel like when it comes to these reports, it will be a possible nothing burger unless we get a serious beat on these inflation gauge numbers. But that's basically what we have for this potential week. Going into earnings, like I said prior to, the real eyes will be keeping an eye on is Nvidia. Nvidia reports earnings after hours on Wednesday. They will be the decider to see if the market is overall strong, because you got to look at it as Nvidia is the supplier for a lot of these big companies like Tesla, Microsoft, Google, Apple, all of those companies. And if Nvidia says that they're strong, they're basically dominoing throughout the whole tech sector when it comes to it. And you start to look at the smaller companies IREN, all these other smaller companies, they basically all domino effect based on NVIDIA. So if NVIDIA reports good earnings, hopefully we can see a nice little gap up with the tech sector, allowing for the overall market to continue higher. But again, if they do miss earnings, then I would expect a ricochet effect to go throughout the rest of the tech sector, allowing for this market to maybe decide to break lower from to the downside. All right. Other basically key stocks to look at when it comes to it, we do have Lucid reporting after hours on Tuesday. Salesforce, that's another one, after hours Wednesdays. Snowflake, after hours. INQ, TD Trade Desk when it comes to advertisement. Lowe's, Celsius is a big one. Consumer name, Duolingo. There's a lot of CoreWeave, Rocket Labs, Mara. There's a lot of good names that are reporting earnings this week, so it should be a fun one. But just make sure that because these names are across the sectors, make sure to keep a very eye on certain stocks, as another stock might be related to another one. So just make sure to trade safe when it comes to earnings on this week. So now looking at the charts overall, as you can see, we're just in the midpoint of the range on what's going on in the overall market. Towards the end on Friday, with all the bearish news that came in, we got a very solid bounce overall, going in from the support zone of the bottom half of the range, then looking into the top half of the range. Now at the moment, we're sitting at the midpoint. So we got to keep an eye on to see if we do decide to gap up going into Monday and Tuesday, is that top of the range. We got to see if this range can hold respectfully going into earnings, or if we're going to get basically a fade off going into earnings on Wednesday with NVIDIA earnings. So something to keep an eye on when it comes to ES with this opening up in the midpoint of the range is, let's see if we can touch the top end of that range going into Tuesday, possibly even Wednesday, and then after hours Wednesday with NVIDIA reporting earnings, if we can get that push up going into like $7,100, or if we fade it and then just go back in the range, just basically trade to the bottom half of the range. So with that, ES is going to be a high watch at the top end of the range going into Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday after hours with NVIDIA reporting earnings. We're going to keep an eye to see if it is bullish for the next leg up, or if it's bearish. We're just going to look at the bottom half of the range, which then we just continue to range bound. Now looking at NQ, kind of the same concept, but slightly lower or slightly bearish. As you can see, as you saw, ES was at the midpoint, and NQ is below the EMA clouds. So I'm not liking this as a standpoint opening up going into next week. But if we do get a potential gap up on Monday or Tuesday over this EMA cloud, I would like us to test the top end of the range, which then NVIDIA's earnings will be Wednesday, being the decider if we want to take the leg up, or even potentially just cruise right back down just continue range bound. So that is going to be basically the decider when it comes to ES and NQ. And now taking a look at BTC, as I said when explaining the news catalyst for this week, what happened on Friday with the Supreme Court ruling on tariffs, marking them as illegal, and then Donald Trump coming out basically putting a 15% or a 10% global tariff on Friday after that news came out, which then on Saturday, yesterday, Trump tweeted out saying that he's putting a 15% tariffs, so 5% more than on top of that 10% tariff he originally said on Friday. So a 15% tariff globally on all the current tariffs that are going on. And after all of that news on Saturday, BTC is trading at 67,000 the same point where it was trading at last week, the same point it was trading at the week prior to. So really nothing has happened with that type of news. So as I can see is that going into the following week, if NVIDIA's earnings are as they say they are, we should hopefully push out of this range, rather up or down. But if we do just continue to range bound and it comes out to where it's flat, I don't expect any serious move unless it's something of a beat when it comes to inflation, or even a potential more rate cuts throughout this year from the original 2 that's currently priced in. So those are basically the charts on looking at seeing exactly what we're looking at this week. Nothing as of right now until potentially Wednesday after hours, to then finish off Thursday and Fridays with NVIDIA's earnings. That's really going to be the key I watch to look for. Hopefully push us out of this range. If not, just make sure to just continue to play the ranges until we get a decider to the upside or downside, because you do not want to get faked out going the opposite direction when you're playing those support and resistances. All right, but now I'll provide you with 3 stocks I'll be keeping an eye on this week, as we do have a pretty interesting week. So let's first, I'm going to start off is Netflix. So Netflix is also just been range bounding, but Trump came out yesterday on Saturday stating that Netflix will be paying the consequences, quote unquote, and talking about a lady named Susan. So with that being said, any type of news from Trump saying pay the consequences leads me to a bearish tone. So hopefully we do get a potential gap down come on Monday, allowing this to hit the bottom half of this range finally, giving us a pretty solid entry point to test longs into this $82, $83 range at this previous resistance or previous support now turned into resistance. So we'll like to see to keep an eye on this key level at $70. The next stock I'll be taking a look at is Amazon. Amazon just been testing this same 210 level since 2024, as it used to be resistance, then became support, then it's resistance, then it was support, then it was support, then it was support, and now we're looking at as resistance. So it is touching this $200 EMA cloud and also touching this 210 resistance. So I would like this level if we do not get a gap up on Monday for this stock. If I'll be keeping an eye to see if we reject this 210 level, to which then we can probably play this lower to that 200 psychological level, and then potentially lower half of to 190s and below. So Amazon is another watch I'm looking at. And then lastly, the next stock I would like to do is EOSE. EOSE has been basically range bounding from the top end at $18-19 to then this bottom half at $11-12. It basically had a clear break, tested as support. Now we're testing support again, and now we finally have broken through this major $12 to $11 level. I would like this to test as potential support or resistance, I believe, to then play short into this EMA of $9. So EMA, EOS is a high watch I'm going to be taking a look at this week if the market does just continue lower, and this just basically continue to trade lower. And I'm going to throw in a fourth one for you, as I've played this stock before and it's basically keeps respecting my levels, is Starbucks. So last week I took Starbucks for a potential short. 2 weeks ago, I believe, not this past week, but this 2 weeks ago I took Starbucks for a short at this $100 level. Now this stock has been coming back to my $100 level. So I'll be keeping an eye to see if it continues to respect this level. And with no major news coming out with Starbucks this coming week, I do see this level being respected and taken down. So I'll be keeping an eye on this $100 level, which then tests the bottom half of this range at 90. So nice B, take a little short and then trade, break this trend line, to which then take it to the $90 level. If it does decide to break and we get a clear break over this 101, 102 level, I'll just instantly just get stopped out. So I'll put my stop losses at that 102 level for a potential retest to go long. But if not, this 101 will be my potential short idea to then short to the bottom half of the range. All right. So that's it with the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's video. And I just want to make sure that everybody trades smart, trades safe, and make sure that just keep an eye on NVIDIA's earnings, because NVIDIA's earnings will be hopefully the decider to see if this market will go higher or lower. And just make sure to if it doesn't, then just make sure to keep trading the ranges, because as of right now, the market just wants to sit in a range, not making a decision if it wants to go higher or lower. So just don't get faked out on those top ends and bottom ends of the range, and just continue to play the levels. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Just make sure to trade smart, trade safe, and let's make sure to secure this bag going into this new week. All right. Have a good one, guys.